For years, the world's best and brightest could come to the U.S. on something called an H-1B visa. American scientist Michio Kaku once described the visa like this.
America has a secret weapon. That secret weapon is the H-1B. Without the H-1B, the scientific establishment of this country would collapse. Forget about Google. Forget about Silicon Valley. There would be no Silicon Valley without the H-1B.
It's been called the Genius Visa. Donald Trump is now making it way harder to get. But if America doesn't want those geniuses, we might know a country that does. Hi, I'm Paul Haberstrood. Welcome to The Cost of Living. Now here's a thought. What if some of those geniuses came here instead? It's nice here. We like it. Later in the show, we look at what that could take and what it could mean for our economy. Also today, the Flamin' Habanero Ghost Pepper Extra Spicy Sriracha Jalapeno Sandwich could be coming soon to a fast food joint near you. But why is everything nowadays feeling so hot? Up first, what was the last thing you watched on YouTube? A how-to video? Jimmy Kimmel's monologue? The news? Or is it all of the above? YouTube just turned 20 years old. Shahraj Ali just turned 21. So YouTube's been around for his whole life. He's watched it since he was a kid.
Since I was like 5 or 6 years old, it kind of just became like an outlet to find all the sorts of like hobbies and things I was interested in. I liked the toys like Beyblades a lot. And the ones that were in Canada weren't always the same that were like available globally. And typically like other parts of the world, like Japan, where it like originated, it was like a lot more ahead.
Now that he's an adult, he watches less Beyblades and more news. But where he's watching, still YouTube.
If I'm like eating breakfast and some big news has just broken, I can go and open up a YouTube video on my phone, and just while I'm having a bowl of cereal or something, I can just keep up with that sort of information. But as far as like day-to-day goes, it's more of like an end of the day sort of thing. Like I've done all the things that I need to do, then I can go down and like as a way of just winding down, I can watch these sorts of things.
Shahraj figures YouTube makes up 80% of his media diet. The rest is Twitter, Instagram, a bit of TikTok. What doesn't make the cut is regular old TV. So would he ever consider paying for that?
I don't think so at all. YouTube just gives me access to a lot of that stuff that's on cable anyways for free.
YouTube started as an online dating service, a place to upload videos and find a match. Its tagline? Tune in, hook up. It quickly realized the real money and the real market wasn't in lonely singles, but in everyone. Like, everyone. It came up with a new slogan, broadcast yourself. And in poured grainy footage of dogs on trampolines, video diaries, and, of course, kids.
Charlie, that really hurt.
But YouTube didn't stop at Charlie bit my finger. Today,
it is one of the biggest libraries of content in the world, right? It's an archive for entire generations now. It is television. It has replaced broadcast TV. It's replaced cable TV. It is a learning repository. It functions the same way that YouTube's parent company, Google, does. It's a search engine. So I think YouTube is many things to many people.
Mark Bergen is the author of Like, Comment, Subscribe, Inside YouTube's Chaotic Rise to World Domination. He describes YouTube as the sleeping giant of media. More people listen to music on YouTube than Spotify. It's a bigger podcasting platform than Apple. We watch 1 billion hours a day of YouTube just on our TVs. If it was a standalone company, it would be twice as valuable as Disney. What we see, how we watch it, what we hear, YouTube is coming for it all. So how did YouTube go from its first video, a 19-second clip of a guy at the zoo,
Here we are, one of the elephants.
to a world-straddling juggernaut that could eat everything in media? Well, it was bought by Google. And that company, it knows what to do with a cat video.
It is part of Google, which is probably the most, the world's most successful advertising company of all time. And like they know how to get people to pay attention to things and then monetize those things. So they're exceptionally good at that.
The reason YouTube, backed by all that Google know-how, is so good at getting and keeping our attention comes back to its secret sauce, its algorithm. This is the magic formula that cues up this video or that one, gets us to tumble down rabbit holes.
YouTube's algorithm is a complicated beast, but like it comes down to the simple formula is all of their machines are trying to optimize for watch time. And they made that flip about 13 years ago. Previously they were kind of optimizing for views. And when you move to a world where you're optimizing for watch time, you have things that YouTube incentivized blossomed overnight.
And did stuff ever blossom? Look at someone like viral video kingpin Mr. Beast.
I recreated every single set from Squid Game in real life, and whichever one of these 456 people...
That video has been watched 876 million times. That's 7 times more people than watched last year's Super Bowl. And whether it's a Mr. Beast video, Jimmy Kimmel's latest monologue, or some dude in Regina telling you how to fix your dryer, YouTube now has a little something for almost everyone. 20 years ago, that first zoo video didn't have the competition quaking in its boots. Why worry about amateur footage on some DIY internet site? Maybe they should have. When Mark Bergen was writing his book, a former YouTube executive told him,
every single business goes through these 3 phases. You're like, first you're a joke, then you're a threat, then you're obvious. And I think that fits to how a lot of the traditional media saw the company, right? This is dogs on skateboards initially. This is a joke. I think over time that's become, it moved from the joke phase to the threat phase, and now it's just become obvious. Like, it's kind of inevitable.
Is YouTube's world domination really inevitable? I asked David Nieborg. He researches social media platforms at the University of Toronto. He says nothing's a sure thing, but when he looks at YouTube, backed by Google, it's nearly 3 billion users. It has a lot going for it.
It seems effortless, but behind all of this, there is physical infrastructure that is not trivial and costs many billions and billions of dollars. So Google has that in place. So it's relatively straightforward for Google. They don't have to build new data centers if they say, we're going to do more podcasting, or we're going to do this other new service, or more music, or more this or that. They can easily scale up because they have so much already in place.
YouTube is already squeezing out competitors as it keeps getting bigger, more embedded in our lives, our phones, our smart TVs. David says competing with it will only get harder.
Imagine you're being a startup and you want to compete. I'm starting to laugh because just saying it is, it's not funny because it's very serious business. But can you imagine being a Canadian startup who says, we're going to compete against YouTube? Like, how literally on Earth or in the Earth are you going to do that? You have to build a massive global infrastructure. Just that would be hard. Then you have to integrate with all of these advertisers. So Google is light years ahead, up to a point where we can ask ourselves if there is any competitor that can keep up or overtake Google.
And this is where things get kind of heavy, because YouTube's influence doesn't stop at cat videos. It's intertwined with big ideas like digital sovereignty, information, and power over what we watch and even what we're allowed to watch.
You can see scenarios where somebody says to YouTube, hey, we want you to prioritize certain content. I hope the listeners can instantly imagine what that would look like, where somebody in the US says, we want you to downgrade Canadian content. We want you to deprioritize Canadian content. For years, if not decades, that was a hypothetical where US platform companies could make decisions for Canadians, what they watch, when they watch it, etc. But increasingly becoming not a hypothetical.
Competition is what keeps any company honest. And right now, the competition is withering. Big media is turning into an oligopoly, with more power split between a handful of companies. The only competitors David can see, big enough to offer a real alternative, are governments. He thinks Canada, the EU, whomever, need to think seriously about building their own data centers and digital infrastructure. That would be a big change. But short of that, he wonders how we'll have any say over what we're able to watch. Now, David isn't saying YouTube is some big evil company. He just watched a video that helped him fix his stove. In a lot of ways, it's fantastic and fun. Its last 20 years weren't an accident. And when he thinks about the next 20...
Nothing seems to suggest that dominance, that sort of monopolistic position, will be threatened. YouTube is very entrenched.
We don't know if YouTube will end up eating everything, but we do know it's hungry. This is The Cost of Living, and yeah, you can listen to us on YouTube. I'm Paul Haberstrood. Hot and spicy, spicy habanero, fiery triple reaper ghost pepper. Look at any fast food menu these days, and chances are it is muy caliente. But why is so much of what's on offer so dang hot?
Asham Agrawal recently went on a culinary trip in Mississauga, down the Lava Chicken Trail.
I went to 5 spots. At some of the spots, we got multiple types of spicy chicken because there was a place that...
In one day, he tried 8 different dishes, each one spicier than the last.
By the time we got to the last one, it was inedible. It was just spice. It was literally just... That's all I tasted. My mouth was on fire. I was running around the parking lot. I could see strangers coming out of their cars very concerned for me.
Asham is a food influencer in Toronto. He says fiery tastes have always been part of the city's restaurant scene. But these days...
I would challenge anybody to find any large restaurant chain or fast food spot that doesn't have a spicy item on their menu.
Claire Conahan is with Data Central, which tracks food and beverage trends. She says 95% of restaurants in the U.S. now have at least one thing on the menu that's spicy.
Also, we're seeing not just we have one, but everything has spice.
This past spring, fast food restaurants launched 76 new spicy menu items. And we're not just talking about Chipotle and Taco Bell.
We've got the spicy McMuffin, right, where McDonald's took their flagship product and just added a spicy sauce. Nothing too complicated, but that has never had a sauce. And here they are tinkering with their most beloved favorite.
So why is everyone bringing the heat? Adam Brown owns a hot sauce company called Too Hot, Too Bad, No Refund. He says Canadian tastes, including his own, are changing.
I grew up not eating overly spicy, right? Kind of Canadiana palate and, meat and potatoes. And, as I started to get more and more introduced to different multi-culti kind of foods, I think that's where my palate grew into it.
A lot of Canadians now come from countries where chilies and peppers are everyday ingredients. And people who don't come from those traditions, they're learning to love the burn.
There's a younger group, more adventurous, that want to try things. They want to experience new flavors. They don't just want to keep eating just for sustenance. They want to live and love what they're eating and really enjoy that.
Enjoy? I don't know. That's not what it looks like on TikTok, which is the place to go if you want to see people eat with sweat pouring down their face.
That's hot. Oh, my
eyes. It literally burns my eyeballs.
Oh, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse.
People love watching you suffer while you eat spicy food, and people just love the challenge of it.
Asham Agarwal says spicy food challenges make for good publicity, and restaurants need that right now. Canadians aren't eating out as much these days because of the high cost of living. Inviting people to try your flaming hot El Diablo quesadilla, it's a good way to reel us back in.
Because the vast majority of spicy limited time offerings that we see now are essentially just an adaptation of a current menu item. So you can get all this marketing buzz from launching this cool new spicy item, but you can do it fast and you can do it cheap.
As someone who dines out for a living, Asham has to make sure he doesn't eat too much of the hot stuff. And he says it'll be a while before he hits the lava chicken trail again.
Eating spicy food back to back to back to back was definitely a challenge. My body is recovering.
For the cost of living, I'm Jennifer Keane.
The next day was rough.
La 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 lava, chicken. Steve's lava chicken, yeah, it's tasty as hell. Ooh, mamacita, now you're ringing the bell. Crispy and juicy, now you're having a stack. Ooh, super spicy, it's a lava attack.
Whew, spicy. On the cost of living today, I'm Paul Haverstrood. Canada's economy will take any good news it can get right now. That's why eyes lit up when Trump said the U.S. will now charge $100K for something called an H-1B visa. It's been called the Genius Visa. It's the magic ticket that lets the world's best and brightest work in the U.S. So if America is making things tougher on geniuses, does this leave an opening for Canada? Mikkel Skuterud is an economist at the University of Waterloo, where he researches immigration policy and labor markets. Mikkel, hi.
Hi, Paul.
So, Mikkel, if you're someone who would have moved to the U.S., worked on an H-1B, are you maybe looking north now? Is this an opportunity for Canada?
The decision that workers make on where to settle and where to work is a complicated one. Many factors enter into that decision. But sort of the political climate of a country surely plays into that. And right now, the United States does not look like a very welcoming place to newcomers. So to me, the lesson here is if there is any potential, and I don't doubt there is some potential to attract some of these workers that otherwise would have stayed in the U.S., is we've got to make sure that that sort of the climate around immigration and perceptions of how Canada welcomes immigrants, we got to be sure that that doesn't deteriorate in a similar way that it has in the U.S. We've been through a decade where I would argue the immigration system has been very poorly handled. It's been mismanaged by the federal government. But I think also when we're talking about immigration, I think we've got to be very careful about the words we're using and that we're not deliberately, posturing just to play to some base. To attract talent, you need sort of a welcoming climate and you need an immigration system that's very predictable. And that looks welcoming, that people can trust it.
Do we have that right now, or do we need to make changes to make us more attractive?
So this is my recommendation. When people are asking me, what should the government do to take advantage of this Trump policy on the H-1Bs? Well, it clearly isn't up to the government to go out recruiting these workers. That's a non-starter. That's clearly not the role of the government. The role of the government is to do what I said, to provide an immigration system that is transparent and it's predictable. Right now, the immigration system looks largely like a lottery to migrants. It is highly unpredictable because what the federal government has done is they've replaced a skilled immigration system that relied on a point system. They've replaced that transparent point system, what I would call a rules-based system, with a discretionary system where the minister every 2 weeks can sort of prioritize any group in the applicant pool that they think is the most important group in that period. And so every few weeks, it's changing who's being prioritized. Some weeks it's truck drivers, some weeks it's healthcare workers. So that it really looks like a lottery. And migrants in this pool are just sitting there with their fingers crossed, hoping that their lucky day comes up. And that's not how you run a well-functioning immigration system that can attract, that can lure skilled workers.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is Canada needs to get back to a rules-based or at least predictable system. That's what can happen on the policy side. You also said posturing. What kind of posturing is going on right now that you think is unhelpful?
So I guess I'm in particular worried about the Conservative Party's proposal to shut down the temporary foreign worker program. From an economics perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because, of course, an important part of the temporary foreign worker program is a stream that is essentially our H-1B program. It's called the Global Talent Stream. And so if you shut down the whole program, then there's absolutely no hope whatsoever of being able to take advantage of this H-1B policy change in the U.S.
You know, if we did attract more of these H-1B types to this country, they decide to come here, they work for a branch plant of Google or Apple or Oracle or whatever. I mean, to my way of thinking, it's kind of like, well, you bring smart people in here and they do smart stuff. And yeah, maybe they come in here and they are working as a branch plant of Google. But then it's like, well, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to make something. And then they spin out a startup and then who knows where it goes. Is that kind of the dream?
That's the dream. So the idea is, we often, that's a nice way of putting it, Paul, because it really makes it transparent. Should we be thinking about immigration as meeting current labor market needs? If that's true, then the way this happens is first the capital investments happen. Businesses decide about what they're going to produce. Now they just need the labor that they've committed to. That's the labor they need. So is immigration about sort of doing that first? Do we let the capital investments happen first and then bring in the skills? Or if this is more long-sighted and we think about permanent immigration, do we do it the other way? Do we bring in the high-skilled workers and then incentivize businesses who will say, well, there's this ready supply of highly skilled workers. Then I am now incentivized to invest in the kind of technology and the type of production. I want to produce more of the types of goods that these workers are specialized to contribute to. So it moves the economy towards something that's more skilled. And that makes very clear that, the type of economy, we tend to think that the mix of jobs you have in an economy are fixed, but they're absolutely not. Just look across countries and you can see that the share of an economy that's doing low-skilled jobs versus high-skilled jobs varies tremendously across economies. So this is very much a policy choice. Do we want to be a high-skilled population, a high-skill, a high-wage economy? And that's very much then about prioritizing the skills of newcomers and then incentivizing the type of investments that lead to skilled production. And a lot of it is what you said. I mean, there will be high-tech workers that come and they create their own startups. But part of it is just you're going to incentivize Amazon and Google to invest more in their Canadian operations because this is where the labor is that they need. So, yeah, I mean, that's clearly what you want to do.
Mikkel, I remember hearing you say once that a country gets the economy it wants through immigration. Can you give an example of what you meant by that?
So maybe it's not quite that strong, but certainly immigration and how you do immigration can influence the types of jobs that are the mix. Let's think about it like that. The mixture of jobs that are done in an economy is influenced by immigration. So even in the agricultural sector, we tend to think that, to harvest fruit and vegetables in agriculture, you just need to have some certain amount of workers. And if you don't get that labor, then the whole business collapses. And that just isn't true because it ignores the importance of technology. And technology, even in harvesting apples, for example, has progressed an awful lot. You don't have to harvest apples by hand anymore, believe it or not. And some countries don't. The few workers who get to operate those very sophisticated harvesting machines that harvest apples, they're very productive. The number of apples that they are able to harvest every hour is way higher than the number of apples that a worker who's picking them by hand can harvest. And so as a result, their wages will be much higher and their living standards will be much higher. And so that's a large part of how immigration can shift what we produce, how we produce, and how people are remunerated.
And then finally, Mikkel, I appreciate all the time here, is some people in Canada have heard about what's happening with the H-1B program in the U.S., and they're kind of excited for us. If I could ask you for the glass half full take on what this could mean for Canada's economy, what would you tell that person who right now is thinking, this could be a good thing?
You know, if Canada has a comparative advantage, Paul, it is that the culture, the climate around immigration and being welcoming to immigrants, that is Canada's comparative advantage. It isn't salaries. But of course, salaries isn't all that goes into the calculus when migrants are making decisions on where to settle. And so if nothing else, we should make sure that we have our own house in order. And we once did. And I think it's very feasible to get back to that. But we definitely, if there's any potential here to poach genuine talent, the kind of talent that can really boost economic growth, GDP per capita in Canada, average living standards. If we have that potential, it is this kind of comparative advantage of being a country that's very open to immigrants and is seen as a country that's open to immigrants, where you will be welcomed.
Well, Mikkel, what I heard there is our comparative advantage is that we're pretty friendly, eh? Thank you for all of that.
Thanks, Paul.
Mikkel Scooter is an economist at the University of Waterloo. That's all for the show. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Danielle Nerman, Leah Hendry, and Jennifer Keane, with help from Jeff Kynock. And before we go, for the last few weeks, we've been asking if you would give us a rating and a review and saying, hey, please do it. It really helps us out. And we just wanted to say thank you because you have. So anyone else who hasn't, great if you did. Thanks. I'm Paul Haberstrood. Thanks for listening.